Story 1. I never liked being home alone. My name is Stefan, and I am 12 years old. My little sister Sam is 10. Last Tuesday, we had to stay home because we were both sick. Mom had to go to work, and our stepdad Steve said he would stop by later to check on us. The day was cold and rainy, the kind that makes you feel even worse when you are already not feeling well. Sam and I were lying on the couch in the living room, wrapped up in blankets while watching cartoons. Our dog Max was curled up at our feet, snoring softly. The house was silent, except for the sound of the TV. Mom had left soup and crackers for us in the kitchen before she went to work. She always made sure we were cared for, even when she was away. Around noon, I started to feel uneasy. It was not because I was sick. It was more like I could sense someone watching us, though I could not see anyone. I tried to ignore it, thinking it was just my imagination, but then I heard something, the front door creaking open. I froze and looked at Sam. Her eyes were wide. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. We both knew it could not be Steve. He always called first if he was coming home early. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone and called Mom. She picked up after the second ring. "Mom, is Steve supposed to be home right now?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "No, honey, he is still at work." "Why?" she asked, her tone filled with worry. A cold shiver went down my spine. "I think someone is in the house," I said, my voice trembling. "Lock yourselves in the basement." "I will call Steve and the police," Mom said quickly. I grabbed Sam's hand, and we ran toward the basement door. Max began barking wildly, his barks echoing through the house. We hurried down the stairs and locked the door behind us. The basement smelled damp and old, cluttered with boxes and forgotten toys. We found a spot behind a stack of boxes and crouched there, trying not to make a sound. Max kept barking upstairs, and then we heard footsteps. Slow, heavy steps moving from room to room. It sounded like someone was searching for something. I held Sam close, whispering that everything would be okay, even though I did not believe it myself. My heart was beating so fast, I thought it might give me away. I could hear Sam breathing rapidly beside me. Minutes felt like hours as we sat there, listening to the sounds above us. Sometimes the footsteps stopped, then started again, closer this time. I kept checking my phone, praying to see a message or hear a call. Then finally, we heard the front door open again, followed by a familiar voice. It was Steve shouting our names. Relief washed over me, and I felt my knees go weak. We stayed hidden until we clearly heard Steve calling our names. "Stefan, it's me, Steve. Where are you?" he shouted. I carefully unlocked the basement door and peeked into the hallway. Steve stood there, gripping a baseball bat tightly, his face pale and tense. Sam and I ran to him and threw our arms around him. "It's okay, kids. The police are on their way," he said, trying to calm us down. "Stay close to me." We followed him as he moved carefully through the house. Max was still barking, standing near the basement door, his tail stiff and his teeth showing. Steve glanced at us and then slowly opened the basement door. "Is anyone down there?" He called out. Silence. No reply came. He started walking down the stairs, holding the bat in front of him, and we followed behind, keeping our distance. The basement looked exactly as we had left it, dark, dusty, and full of shadows. Steve moved cautiously, checking behind boxes, under old furniture, and in every dark corner. Then Max began to growl, low and deep. His fur was standing up, and his eyes were fixed on the back of the room. Steve turned his flashlight toward that spot, raising the bat. That's when we saw him. A man was crouched behind a pile of boxes, his clothes filthy, his hair long and tangled. His eyes were wide, darting around like a trapped animal. He looked scared, but we were terrified. "Don't move. The police are coming." Steve shouted. His voice was steady but full of tension. The man didn't say a word. He just stared at us with those wild eyes, breathing hard. We slowly backed away while Steve kept his focus on the stranger. A few minutes later, we heard sirens outside. Red and blue lights flashed through the basement window. Moments later, police officers rushed in through the front door. They went straight to the basement and surrounded the man. He didn't fight back. He just let them put handcuffs on him and take him out of the house. The police searched every corner of the basement, but found nothing else. Afterward, they spoke with us, asking questions about what we had seen and heard. Steve stayed beside us the whole time, making sure we felt safe. Not long after, Mom arrived. She ran inside, tears in her eyes, and hugged us both tightly. "You did exactly the right thing," she said, her voice shaking. "You were so brave." We never found out who that man was or what he wanted. The police said he might have been a drifter, maybe someone looking for shelter or planning to steal something. But the mystery of it made it even more frightening. Before we start the next story, if you are new here, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon to get updates on upcoming scary stories. We truly appreciate your support. Share these stories with your friends and family. Thank you. Story 2. Last Friday night started out like any other. My parents were going to a dinner party, so they hired a babysitter to stay with me. Her name was Emma, a friendly teenager who lived a few houses away. I liked her because she was fun, kind, and always brought snacks and board games. We planned to watch a movie together and eat popcorn. Around 7 o'clock, my parents said goodbye, reminding Emma of the emergency numbers before they left. The house felt extra quiet after the front door closed. Emma and I sat in the living room watching my favorite cartoon. Everything was calm until we heard a knock at the door about an hour later. I perked up, thinking maybe Mom or Dad had come back for something or brought me a surprise. Emma told me to stay put on the couch while she went to see who it was. I heard her call out, "Who's there?" "We're from Tony's Pizza," a deep male voice replied. "We have your order." I frowned. We hadn't ordered any pizza. Emma opened the door just a little and peeked outside. 2 men were standing there. Both wore baseball caps pulled low, so I couldn't see their faces. One of them was holding a pizza box. Emma looked uneasy. "I think you've got the wrong house." "We didn't order any pizza," she said. The man with the box shook his head. "This is the address we were given. Someone must have called in the order." Emma hesitated. I could tell she didn't believe them. "What name is on the order?" she asked. The men exchanged a quick glance before one of them said, There was no name, just this address." That didn't sound right at all. Emma's face tightened, and she stepped back from the door. "I'm going to call the pizza shop to double-check," she said. She quickly shut the door and locked it. Then she pulled out her phone and pretended to make a call. Her voice was steady, but loud enough for them to hear. "Hi, Tony's Pizza? I'd like to confirm an order for 123 Maple Street," she said. There was a short pause. She looked at me, her expression tense. I realized she wasn't actually talking to anyone. She was pretending. The men outside must have noticed too. They started talking louder, sounding impatient and angry. One of them said, "Just open the door. We'll leave the pizza and go." My stomach nodded. The air felt heavy and cold. Emma didn't flinch. She lifted her phone again and said firmly, "If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police." She started pressing buttons on her phone to make it look real. "The cops are already on their way," she said loudly. The men stopped talking for a moment. Then I heard one of them mutter something to the other before they both stepped off the porch. Their footsteps faded away into the night. Emma peeked through the window to make sure they were gone, then turned back to me with a shaky smile. "It's okay now," she whispered, but her hands were trembling. Neither of us spoke for a while after that. We just sat together, listening to the rain tapping against the windows, waiting for my parents to come home. And then suddenly went quiet. For a moment, everything was completely still, and then we heard the sound of footsteps moving away from the door. Emma waited a few seconds before going to the window to look outside. She watched as the men hurried to a van, parked down the street, and drove off. Emma quickly locked every door and checked each window to make sure the house was secure. She came back and sat beside me on the couch, trying to look calm even though her hands were trembling. "It is okay," she said in a low voice. "They are gone now." I nodded, though my heart was still pounding in my chest. "Who were they?" I asked. Emma shook her head slowly. "I do not know, but they were not pizza delivery men. They wanted to trick us into opening the door. We decided to stay together in the living room with all the lights on. Emma called my parents right away to tell them what had happened. They were worried and said they would be home as soon as possible. Then Emma called the real Tony's Pizza to check if someone had placed an order from our address. The restaurant confirmed that no delivery had been made. While waiting for my parents, we tried to distract ourselves by playing games on her phone. Every small noise made us jump, and we kept glancing at the front door, expecting the men to return. When my parents finally came home, they hugged me tightly and thanked Emma for being quick and brave. My dad called the police to report the incident. The officers arrived shortly after and asked us several questions. They told us we did exactly the right thing by keeping the door locked and pretending to call the police. That night, I slept in my parents' room. I could not stop thinking about what might have happened if Emma had opened the door. The next day, my parents installed a new security system with cameras to protect the house. Emma was truly a hero that night. She stayed calm, kept me safe, and acted wisely even though she was scared. I learned something important from that experience. Always trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it usually is. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to stay calm and act smart until help comes. From that night forward, I was more alert to the dangers around us. But knowing that people like Emma were there to protect me made me feel much safer. We never found out who those men were or what they wanted, but thankfully they never returned. Story 3. Living in a downtown loft near a row of busy bars can be exciting, but it also comes with its unsettling moments. Most nights, I would hear loud music echoing through the streets, along with bursts of laughter or heated arguments from people leaving the bars. Sometimes, I worried that a drunken stranger might mistake my home for theirs and try to come inside. My loft was on the ground floor, and even though the building had decent security, the constant noise always made me uneasy. One Friday night, I was home alone. The sounds outside were typical music, car horns, and voices blending into a restless city soundtrack. I had a tiring day and decided to head to bed early. I slipped under the blankets, hoping to catch a full night of rest. But around midnight, I woke up to something unusual. There were faint voices and soft violin music drifting through my living room. My eyes snapped open as fear crept in. I lay completely still, trying to tell myself it was just part of a dream, or maybe some noise from the street outside. But the sounds grew clearer, rising in volume. I could hear whispering, like people speaking in a language I could not understand. The violin's melody turned strange and haunting, making the hair on my arms stand up. Panicking, I decided to hide. I carefully slid out of bed and tiptoed into my closet. I shut the door behind me and crouched in the dark, my heart beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. I stayed quiet, listening for any movement. The voices and eerie music continued, echoing through my small loft as if unseen guests were inside. After what felt like forever, the noises stopped all at once. The silence that followed was somehow even more terrifying. I waited a few more minutes, frozen in place, before finally finding the courage to leave the closet. I crept toward the living room, every step feeling heavy. When I got there, the room was completely empty. No one was there. I checked the front door, but it was locked, just like I had left it. Confused and still frightened, I looked around, trying to figure out what could have caused the sounds. Then, I heard a soft clicking noise. It was coming from my sound system. I walked over and noticed the power light glowing. That was strange, since I had not touched it that night. I pressed the button to turn it off and back on, thinking maybe it had glitched. Just then, there was a knock on my door. My heart leapt into my throat. Who would come by at this hour? I carefully stepped closer and looked through the peephole. It was my neighbor from the next loft, a man named Mark. He looked both nervous and apologetic. I unlocked the door and opened it a little, still cautious. "Hey, Mark, is everything all right?" I asked. He smiled awkwardly and rubbed the back of his neck. "Sorry to bother you," he said. "I think I might have accidentally connected my phone to your sound system." I stared at him, completely puzzled. "What are you talking about?" I asked. Mark gave a small, nervous laugh and explained, "I'm working on a horror film for my college project. I recently bought a new wireless speaker system, but it seems like it accidentally connected to your speakers instead of mine. I've been testing out some creepy sound effects and background music for hours, and I had no idea they were playing in your apartment." As soon as he said that, a wave of relief washed over me. My body finally relaxed as I realized there were no intruders at all, just a technical mistake. I let out a shaky laugh, still feeling the leftover fear in my chest. "That explains everything," I said. "I honestly thought I was losing my mind, or that someone had broken into my place." Mark looked embarrassed and kept apologizing. He promised to double-check his equipment and fix the settings so it would not happen again. We ended up talking for a few minutes after that, and he told me more about his film project. He was editing a scene filled with eerie whispers and haunting violin melodies, which made perfect sense now. Those were the same sounds that had terrified me just minutes earlier. After he left, I went to the kitchen and made myself a warm cup of tea to calm down. I sat by the window, sipping slowly, still amazed at how frightened I had been over something so harmless. The memory of hiding in my closet made me laugh quietly to myself. I looked around my little loft, now quiet and peaceful, and felt grateful that everything was fine. Living downtown could be noisy and stressful, but moments like this reminded me that it also had its lighter side. Even with all the strange sounds and late-night scares, it still had a way of bringing people together in the most unexpected ways.